Hello, I am Benito Sunil. I'm from Group 4, and we're going to be talking about the improvement process, in this case for Buckland. So please join me to this session. Again. Well, before we start, let me do a quick introduction about Buckland. Buckland is a Canadian-based company that has presence in the US, Canada, and Mexico, and is directly involved in the supply chain and logistics, heavily invested in the automotive industry per se. Something really important about this industry is that it encompasses a lot of complex processes that we're going to be talking about a small portion of it. But in an inside out of the business, basically because of the OEM structures, the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 companies based in Canada, US, and Mexico, there is a lot of traffic of shipments coming from Canada to Mexico, Mexico to the US, vice versa from the US to Mexico, etc., etc. On a daily basis, there are over 17,000 shipments crossing via the Laredo port, just in the border between the Texas and Mexico side. There's one of the places where Buckland we have a warehouse location where we receive goods, we unload, review, validate information, cross-docking, and we load it back into the trailer so it can go to the customs clearance. In the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about the next process. And one of the important portion from the financial business and perspective of Buckland, we're going to be talking about the billing process. It's really important that we make sure that all the pieces are aligned, including the financial portion. Please join me next. All right, let's talk about what happened in our warehouse. So remember that I mentioned that shipments arrived to our warehouse location in Laredo. So this is the process that it takes. Shipments from clients get to our warehouse. We validate every single of those shipments. We validate it against the packing list, commercial invoice. We do a physical inspection of the goods, and we make sure that all information match. So far, you're with me? Perfect. After everything is scanned, after everything is validated, that we are 100 in compliance with the regulations, because that's what we do, obviously, there's this next process that we need to make sure to confirm to the clients that everything is right, that their shipments are not going to be into any discrepancies, that they're not going to be paying any duties and taxes. So we're talking about there is a highly volume of shipments that we receive. There is some variety of the process because even though we are really importing auto parts or moving auto parts all across the supply chain, there is a small fraction of shipments that have some level of complexity, such as moving heavy machinery, equipment, or some special shipments that some plants might require. There's also this portion of the demand. Okay, the demand for these shipments is actually for the automotive industry is really constant all over the year. There are some seasonalities involved with the shutdowns, which usually are scheduled, but the variety is really constant. It's one of the most constant industries and more reliable industries based on the volumes. Usually when there's a disruption, disruption, it is because some global situations in the supply chain, because there are some external factors such as change in the tariff, just like right now is going on with the US and their external policy. But there are some other factors that are not necessarily in control of Buckland or the company. Therefore, we adapt to that. Even for purposes of the visibility, in terms of the V4 analysis, for the visibility, we play a small fraction in the supply chain for these shipments. Mind you not, probably if I wouldn't be doing this video and telling you about the process that it happened at the border, you wouldn't even know about this process. So please, stay with me. I'm going to keep you walking through the process, and then we're going to get into the financial portion of our video. Well, so let's imagine that this little ping pong ball is going to be a reference, depending on the process of what we do at Buckland. It can be achievement in, achievement out, achievement in, or an invoice going out. And that's what we're going to make a reference. So at Buckland, we're expecting shipments coming in. Achievement comes in, an invoice going out. Achievement coming in, an order coming out. Oh, perhaps I need to change my maneuvers. Now I'm doing another specialized service. But basically what we want is to all the process to be moving all the way. And we want this process to be in a high volumes because that's how we make the most of the revenue. And we want this process to be non-stop. Basically 7 a.m. to midnight, the 7 days of the week, non-stop it. And this is what makes Buckland profitable in the long run working in the automotive industry. So now we're going to be talking about the billing process and some of the challenges that we had during these multiple steps. So basically we have a CSR or a customer service representative that they perform what we call the liquidation box. This liquidation box is basically a summary of everything that was involved into the achievement, coming from the details about the trailer number, how many pallets were involved in the process, if we perform any activities such as shrimp wrap or palletize or any other activity that we might be able to bill back to the client. So this process is heavily manual and involves an Excel file. During this Excel file, the process can be done by filling the information as you go along with the achievements or once the whole achievement is complete. Usually this process can take from 5 minutes to 96 hours, which is a big timeline in which the activity can happen. The next portion is that once the CSR completes this process, it has to move to a different department. In this different department, there are some billing clerks that are responsibility at the very beginning is to review this liquidation box, review and confirm the information that is there, and they perform a quick decision making process. Either the review is okay and it can go to the next process, or it is sent back to the customer service representative or to the CSR responsible for providing this information. At the same time, there are other billing clerks that they do a Mexican broker statement of account analysis in which they review the expenses involved into the operation as well, meaning that they need to validate billing code per billing code to make sure that are, first of all, in the schedule fee, second of all, that the numbers match with the tariff that we have with our vendors, and if everything, once again, match, it goes to the next process. If not, it's returned back to the service provider. This process can take 24 hours on average. Let's assume that all information match from every single portion of the process. The billing clerk now it takes 5 to 10 minutes to create what we call the dummy entry. And the dummy entry is basically a draft of the invoice that is going to be sent to the client. In this process, the billing clerk needs to validate the fees that we have for the client per service that we were rendering. So if we did a cross-dock operation, we're talking about the billing code involved for that service. If we did another inspection or inventory count, the billing clerk needs to add that specific billing code into the template. And basically, that's how the invoice that we do to our clients, it is created. By validating information from the CSR, by validation of the cost that we have with the vendors, by confirming the information based on the schedule fee to the clients, and then when everything is once again completed, the commercial invoice is sent via the distribution center or the software that we use. This process, it can be really fast, as I mentioned, in less than 24 hours, or it can take as a minimum of 4 days. Or in some cases, the deviations that we have seen is that some invoices, it can take up to 3 or 4 months. So moving forward, we're going to be talking about other portion of the process and how can those be improved.
Hi, my name is Unai and I'm part of the consulting team brought in to review Buckland's billing and invoice process. As Benito explained the billing process, we wanted to understand the financial effects it has had. We then look at the company's financial report from January to June. Currently, the average collection time is around 75 days after the invoice is processed. Since Buckland cannot collect payment for a service until an invoice is issued, the company has to finance the entire operation in the meantime, including third-party expenses such as maneuver at port, duties, and taxes. And remember, the longer it takes to bill, the longer it takes to collect and then ties up valuable resources. This delay also affects the account receivable turnover ratio and results in a longer days sales outstanding period. Another area of impact is staffing. The more pending files, the more billing clerks are needed to catch up, which directly affects the company's profit and loss statement. As we can see from this table, even though the process itself is fairly straightforward, it still requires around 12 employees to keep it running. That means higher fixed costs through salaries and potentially variable costs through overtime depending on efficiency. Altogether, this increases the average cost per invoice. And finally, when we look at the backlog of unprocessed files, it leads to unregistered revenue, income that hasn't yet been recognized in the books. Overall, the improving this process will significantly strengthen Buckland's financial position, reduce debt exposure, and deliver meaningful and operational benefits. So that being said, our main recommendations for Buckland are: first of all, instead of using Excel to input information into the liquidation box, we suggest using a dedicated software application. This app would include as much automation and validation as possible, so any data inconsistency can be detected early rather than later in the process. That way, we might not even need the extra steps like dummy entry and billing codes or schedule fees. Second, we recommend introducing a time tracking system to monitor how long each step takes. This would provide valuable insights into process times and also help enforce KPIs for data entry performance. Third, we suggest that a review at the Mexican border, meaning implementing automatic machine per billing code. This would handle most of reviews automatically, with only the exceptional cases requiring manual attention. And finally, a simple checkbox for billing line reviews, just to make sure everything has been verified before submission. And to sum it all up, our recommendations aim to leverage software to automate key steps and minimize the manual work, ultimately improving both accuracy and efficiency across the process. Overall, this reduces the workflow from 7 to just 2 steps, one for data input and one for review, making the entire process faster, simpler, and far more reliable. Thank you. Thank you for having us. We hope our feedback can help improve the process going forward.